Oh, yeah, hang on. Sorry about that. Yeah. Yes, it does. There we are. It's me again. Hello, everybody. Sorry. Sorry, guys. Right. Okay. Let me just try and share then I've got too many tabs open again. God. Right. Where are the minutes? They are there. Yeah. Okay. So let's give me some minutes. So interesting. There's Ian's in there actually at the moment. So I see he's in that document. Bear with me. Just sharing. Right. Has that worked? Oh, that hasn't worked, has it? Oh, yes, it has. Can you see a document called Governance Committee Minutes?
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Fantastic. This is more or less, Governance Committee was running fairly regularly back in sort of end of February, March. And then we sort of stopped for a bit while we had to think about things. I won't go into any of that. But what we had, these things have got a fairly standard format. We've got links back to a charter. We won't go into the charter now, but I'll just briefly say that what Governance Committee is about, it's about designing and discussing the way we do things around here. It isn't actually doing stuff. So it's a bit meta. It's about, let's talk about our ways of working, our structure, and the relationships of the co-op. And we make decisions and recommendations about those. We then get those endorsed, hopefully by some executive board or the president or whoever. And then when they've been endorsed like that, then they're in force. And then basically the people doing their job operationally are meant to pick up, if you like, the design that we've got. And if there's any conflicts or issues, then they come back and we iron out and debug, if you like, things which are going wrong. So we're not what I'd call an executive committee. We're a legislative committee, if you see what I mean. You know, we help work out what the rules are, and we do the air traffic control a bit, help broker the way the co-op works. So that's the idea of Governance Committee. What we did at the last session was to say, by special request, Rich Jensen wanted to get some process going to support the special meeting, the special members meeting, where we try and iron out a future design, how the co-op could work, what its structure could be, how the members could interact and work together, and do that not in a very deterministic way, top down, but it's basically put a minimum necessary level of structure and coordination so everybody can get on with stuff without there being conflict or confusion or coordination, or for that matter, conflicts of interest and possible abuse of powers. So what we wanted to make sure that we had an equitable, fair and balanced governance structure. And that, for me, that means that the member voice has to be heard in this properly somehow. It's not, if you like, a typical hierarchy. We're a co-op. We're meant to be there's a bit of fluid democracy in there, as Jim was saying. What we discussed last time was we put together a framework, which was a spreadsheet, which has some roles, groups and bodies in it. And then it works out the relationship between those and the basic characteristics. Now, a lot of this is dotted around the co-op's memory and various information stores all over the place. It's very hard to get everything, a view of everything in the same place at the same level of, if you like, detail, the same level of abstraction. So the idea is, well, let's put together some sort of landscape to do that. So we created this landscape spreadsheet tool, which I'll now show you in just a second, which is, scrolling down here, an overview of the structure, relationships between the roles, bodies, committees and working groups in the co-op. That's ones that, and some of these are active, some of them are inactive. And then try and do that collaboratively so that we all sort of fill in as much of that as possible in a not so decentralized way, but basically collaborate and discuss that and iron out the bugs and problems in it.
Are we supposed to be looking at the sheet?
Not yet, no. Shall I do that? It'd be easier to look at the sheet. Let me do that now. Let me just put that up now. So where is it? Yeah, here it is. Let me share that sheet. I'll have to, new share. Does that mean I get both of these at the same time? Let's see what happens. Did that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see that, or is it? Oh, your screen's looking a bit busy. Do you want me to shut something down, or?
That's all right.
Okay, right. So I'll just explain the structure of this thing then. So the columns are basically the roles. So one of those could be, if you like, the executive and chief executive officer, or it could be a body, something like the board. Or it could be just something like it could be a committee, or it could even be or at this moment it could just be a function. So it's a bit of a broad definition at the moment of what these things are, but I broadly say it's a role across the top. In each of those columns, we've got some characteristics which say, or attributes, which say what the status is, inactive or active, or paused or whatever, some of the comment about that status, what the type is, and this is old school governance things here. This is judicial, supervisory, or executive, basically. There are some keys on this second page here which explain what we mean by those: executive, legislative, judicial, or supervisory. As it says here, executive makes the operational decision within a set of powers. Legislative is sets or maintains rules, and judicial or supervisory, which is basically checking up on stuff. Supervisory, and maybe if there's something nasty happened, judging something. So it could be a disciplinary committee, for example. So there's a key page here for the different types of structures. Oh, there is an introduction. There is a sort of an introduction page on this as well. Let me just go back to the roles thing. Okay, so we've then got transparency. So this goes either from completely public or open down to private, or within the groups that they're all semi-private. So there's a number of headings across there. If it's a committee, there's a chair role in there, and there'd be a space for the members. But at the moment, we haven't got any of that. We haven't had time to put any of that stuff in there. So there's lots of gaps in this framework, is what I'm saying. So I really, anybody who's worked in any of these committees or active in any of these committees, please, if it's your home, please fill in what you know about it in this spreadsheet. Link to the charter. Many of these are either absent or out of date, as far as I can see, or the only reference to them is in the bylaws. And what I've been trying to do is to reverse engineer from those charters or the bylaws, what the accountability or objective of those roles and committees are here. So we've got them, if you like, summarised at a glance. Some of these are a bit wordy at the moment. They probably need a bit of trimming down so they're a bit more manageable, but you can at least see what they do at a glance across here. And then we can just do a read across and say, hey, hang on a minute, there's a bit of a duplication here, or who does this job? Oh, I can't, there's a gap. Or, basically do some challenge across here to say, at a glance, see what's going on. There's another thing here, which is a summary of scope or powers. So in here, it might be board is able to sign off a proposal to the level of so much in dollar value, or it might be development in able to sanction a development of man days, or whatever it is. So there might be some sort of scope of powers available in here. In some of the new policies which we were discussing in Governance Committee last year, we spent quite a bit of time on working out what those would be. And I think we got the idea of what's significant, i.e. the thing that all the membership and the co-op need to know about. And we've had a definition of that worked up in a policy called GP001. But that's not effective at the moment. So at the moment, I think there are different criteria all over the place. Criteria for members is, I think, criteria. What are the capabilities required for the membership of that committee? Something about, we talked last week about adding resources and commitment in there. We talked about the election process in there. Again, some of this is covered in the bylaws, but again, in other terms of reference or charters, there may be other things said. And here, again, from last week, we discussed that we ought to have something about the as is and the to be. So we may have maybe too many, or maybe there may be missing things across in the as is situation. And we might say, well, actually in the to be, we need something here. This doesn't exist today, we need it. Or this and these two bodies are overlapping. We think we could roll them together and we only need one of them, because it makes it too complicated. Otherwise that would streamline things. So in the to be, it would be combine. But this is something where we can start to work out what our to be situation could be. So, and then finally, in this structure thing, there's this thing about relationships. So this is, no surprise here, a cross relationship between the two sets of meetings. So audit and finance, obviously the greys are where it's recursive, but it's from compensation to the president and to the board. So the compensation committee would make recommendations about director salaries to the board. The board would vote and approve on that, and the compensation committee would then presumably maybe work with the executive to enact the implementation of that compensation package or whatever. That's probably a bad example, but finance committee is another one there. Audit and finance would, for the executive and the chief operating officer, so we don't have a CEO, well, we do have a COO now, but or an executive committee, we'd expect the audit and finance committee to audit their decisions, that we submit the audit and finance committee would submit company reports. They'd approve and execute financial transactions over a certain value. So here we're starting to fill in, again, all blank at the moment. When we've got a handle on what we think these, when we've got a full set up here, and when we've got a clear idea of what the accountability and objectives are, then we can come back on here and start to look at the links between them. So there's quite a lot of work in this, obviously, but I hope it's going to make visible a design which we can debug without getting lots of people to sit down around tables, then thrash it out and find it's all broken. We do a bit of thinking in advance, and then if we decide that we have a good design and we put it forward and it gets implemented, then anybody in the co-op should be able to use this as sort of a way of navigating things and hopefully understanding better how they participate and how things get done around here. So that was really the summary where we got to last week. Just wanted to check now at this meeting whether we've got any feedback on the structure or other ideas, other things which are missing from this.
That's a pretty awesome job. I mean, for the community groups, I'd like to see in there users, and we're user driven, although that's not a short-term concern.
Well, users as in users of dApps, or do you mean? Yeah, okay, right. And that's a good one. That's a really good one, Jim, actually, because I think it's important that we recognise in anything where we've got building up an ecosystem platform that we actually do understand not just the developers, the dApp developers on here, but we understand end users on that platform, because that's going to help understand where there are going to be, if you like, synergies and network effects across the consumer population. Yeah.
And then there's the issue of rock holders. Are they lumped in with investors or what's?
Yeah, that's true. Oh, I've got investor community here. I thought I'd leave it at that level for now, but yeah, I agree. There are different segments in there, aren't there?
Yeah, that's probably fine.
But yeah, I'll just make a note. I'll put a question mark in there. I'll put segments with a question mark in there, so we don't forget that.
It's fairly often people ask about, what if rock holders have any say in the governance and how that would work. In terms of an interest group, we would want to get their sentiment at least. Yep. But they're certainly not the only stakeholder.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I think because we're a co-op, I mean, the principle is it's one member, one vote. But it's just there may be something where maybe we'd want maybe there's a group or an interest group of major investors who've been with the project for if in there for the long term, and at least we'd want to consult with them or discuss with them. We might not want to give them any formal additional voting, but we might consider that. We'd certainly give them, we'd allow some of that voice in there somehow. But that's something to be, I think, discussed again in the governance. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I'm looking to go toward a multi-branch, multi-stakeholder thing that the membership would vote to implement.
Yeah.
Which would give us better decisions than a pure democracy.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'll just make that community stroke stakeholder groups then. Right. Okay. One thing that I thought of adding later was to add another sheet in here, which made this a little bit more, because this spreadsheet is getting quite busy now. So what I was wondering about doing a graphical thing, and sort of, I'll just try and do it. I'll just start something now, actually. So basically have two have basically an XY space in here. So on the X-axis, we'd put at the top, we'd have in there, if you like, strategic. And at the bottom, we'd have, if you like, operational day-to-day, ops, day-to-day down there. So that's sort of like a range of decision making. So strategic, 5 years out, where are we going to be? What's happening? And down here, operations day to day is maybe it's minute by minute. We've got there's a fork happening over here. There's this DAP which is failing, or there's there's an investor at the door. And lots of, so this type of range. And in the middle, we've got sort of supervisory, where we're maybe setting policy, maybe we're doing architecture, stuff like that. So this level of, if you like, range, strategic down to operational here. So that dimension here. On the left-hand side, then, put another, and then in this way across the y-axis, for the want of a better word, I put business stuff over here, if I can spell that, but business. And over on the right hand side, we'd have, if you like, technology.
I missed something here. Is this goals? What is this?
Well, the idea is this is basically a space, and what I was thinking of doing is basically drawing stuff in here. So the board would be somewhere right at the top. It's strategic. Board and president will be over here, probably more on the business side. Then we might have a strategic technology group, a technical direction committee, which is over here. We might have or an architecture or technical committee. We might have a development team, which is a bit further down here, which is managing backlog and sprints and stuff, and maybe epics and one of it which might be business requirements focused, and then another might be estimating focused down here on the technology side. And in between, in this area, we might have this is where all the marketing bodies might be, maybe more business focused, and the community relations groups might be over here, the softer business facing activities over here. But basically we try and map those roles out that we've got across in one dimension at the moment, left to right. We've mapped them on this space, and then just draw some lines between them. I'm not trying to make necessarily it like a hierarchy, but there might be some lines between them of controls and links. And what I've done, what I've done before with this, I found this useful before, because it does mean you can get a whole organization on like an A0 sheet. And then you can just stand there and you can talk about where you fit and your problems with this other group or that other group, and what are the types of activities that they do versus the stuff that you do, and what you need from them. And then somebody who's trying to deal with the co-op as a whole to get things done, typically I want to build a new thing on the project, start from scratch, build something, versus I want to fix something which is broken, or basically a number of different end-to-end use cases where you don't really care very much about how the mechanics of all the bodies and groups in the co-op do, but you do want to have your process end-to-end to be reasonably efficient. So you draw, if you like, a process navigating through these different bodies, so you know where all the handoffs are, and you say, hang on a minute, that looks crazy. We've got somebody asking for something over here. It runs around 4 or 5, 6 different groups, and then comes back at the end, and 3 weeks later, we've got to have something slicker than that. So, it's a way of designing at a high level for more efficient process. But for now, leave the process for later. It's just a way to see at a glance maybe some of those roles we've got on this spreadsheet, the HR committee, if we have an HR committee, I don't know if we do, but we see these different roles laid out on that, on that picture. And then obviously they'd link back to the description of what it is in here. So anyway, that was just a thought. Would that work? I'll take that as a no then. For now. We'll park that one for later then.
I wanted to just quickly comment, Nick, because I'm going to have to drop off. But very nice to meet you, and great work. It's Rich Holding here. I've just joined the community.
Welcome.
Thank you. If you go back to that sheet 5.
Oh, yeah.
Just because I think when you see it, it just brings it in my head. I really like it. And the reason is it reminds me of some project management software that a consultancy I work with once developed. And I always think that the biggest problem when you're running an organization or a project is the devil's in the detail. Yeah, and exactly. What you want to do is you want to classify things into different areas and then link them together, and ideally then be able to drill down. And what this software did was exactly that. It went from a Jira, I can't remember what it was called, but I could look to maybe dig it out and send a link or something. But it basically, you had your standard, was it a Gantt chart? I don't know, but your standard kind of tasks and things that are related to each other. But then you could very much break it out and drop into the subtasks. Yeah. And this is very top level, but it's exactly what an organization needs. It needs to classify different areas where you're doing things and draw lines between them to establish the dependencies, and then maybe drop down. That's my only contribution, really. But I like it, is what I would say. Nice work.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's nice to have words and pictures, basically. You can have stuff which is written down in words. You can have lists and matrices, and some things work better for some people than others. So, and I think it's quite valuable to have them cross-check each other. So you can be looking at a picture and say, hang on a minute, isn't there some relationship between this? Shouldn't there be something between these two? They look at and that prompts an idea which says, no, there's something missing, or that doesn't look right. So being able to cross-validate, I think, is useful.
Yeah.
So it's just a visualization.
And being able to evolve as well, because it changes as the project moves forward. That those dependencies and classifications can change. But as a representation, I really like what you've done there. I am going to drop off now.
No problems. Thank you very much. If there's anything that you see in here, I mean, please don't be afraid to dip in and add bits or comment on it and help get it filled in, because the next bit is going to be asking for volunteers.
Yeah,
this is
absolutely.
Everybody leaves the call now, of course.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
I'm just watching. I'm watching you now. I'm watching the list of members now in the call now. This is the bit where I ask for assistance. But I mean, I won't be. I mean, this is just a quick.
It is important stuff.
Yeah. So, with that, then, if there is anybody could speak up if you have any of these role areas that you would be able to help out with filling something in on it, please speak now, or edit something in on the spreadsheet. I think we've got edit access to this now, but if not, there's you can add comments in there as well. I think Rich Jensen added some comments in there, but which I've resolved in there. But if either by editing direct or by adding comments, please feel free to contribute. So if there aren't any volunteers on this call right now, I won't pursue you all.
One problem is having the information. I mean, I can I can offer some engagement, but
yeah,
it's not clear I could be much help in filling out these areas.
No, it's just really, if there's something that you, I mean, I think Kelly mentioned, I think, Kelly sent me a link to the RIP process. So if you remember stuff that's around, I was told by that there is some good material on partner relations and ecosystem, that Reflective Ventures did some stuff which is somewhere around in the old either folders or the documentation. I think on marketing and comms, I think again I was told there was a marketing and comms plan done. I need to see Derek on that. He might know where that is, but you know, these are Bill has been helpful. I haven't managed to catch up with him yet, so but you know, if you see some gaps around here, the disciplinary body, Barry Cinnamon I think had some material on that. I remember seeing the conflict of interest policy, and there were a lot of links in there, but I don't know if there's other material there. Nominating, I really don't know about that one. There's lots of stuff in the but anyway, if you guys have got any information that or links that you think I have missed, please add them in there and I'll follow them up. Or
if you want to assign me something, I'll see what information I can dig up.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, that would be a big help. Okay. Well, at that point then, is there anything else we need to talk about other than just plugging on with this?
Do we need to say anything about this special meeting?
Well, I was going to really leave that to Dan and his process. So I'm just looking at the GitHub and filling in sessions in on that one. So has everybody on the call seen the special meeting process?
And the other thing I was thinking, while we're at it here, I mean, the improvement process and so many things now are on GitHub, that we might want to take advantage of some of the project support within GitHub itself.
Mm-hmm.
Of keeping Kanban boards. It also lets you, add cards. And
yes, so run the process of this. At the moment, I think if we get back to running governance committee, if you like, as it was, I absolutely agree with that. And that's what because at the end of it, remember we used to have that list of actions, the running list of actions at the end of the minutes. And we used to, it would be better to run that with, as you say, Kanban process, and to get stuff done using a more, if you like, agile tool than just a set of meeting minutes and a load of actions at the end of it. So,
and
but
it's
at the moment,
easy to add a card in a few seconds, and then when it becomes a little more baked, you can hit a button and it'll create an issue to go with the card.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
Yeah.
it's fairly lightweight once you know how to use it, which I haven't.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is all good stuff, but I think it's just at the moment because we've got, when we reconstitute governance committee properly, rather than just like running it in this process to help out with other work, then I think we could get as a group, we could revisit the tools and approach that we use, the way we manage work. Yeah. Good. Thanks, Jim. Good. Okay. So that's really our checkpoint then. If I'll plug away, and then maybe next week come back and we'll look at where we've got to with the spreadsheet, and hopefully at that point we can start to raise some issues about it, about what we see, because I think we'll have mapped things more or less as they are now, as is things. And I think in the process of doing that, we're going to find there's a few issues and problems, and that's, I think, where we might maybe more usefully come up with, then discuss proposals for what needs to be done about fixing things. So hopefully next meeting will be a bit more interesting than this one, in that we'll have got some findings to discuss. Okay. Anything else? In that case, bye everybody. Thank you very much. Bye, Gary. Thank you.
I wanted to see if there was anything in the chat. All right, folks. Bye-bye.